Oh man, what did I have?
Is this working?
Oh,
yes, it is.
Success.
Great. Okay. So, welcome to training for CLO Atelier. My name is Grace, and this is
Jesse.
Thank you for making the time for us. We're really excited to be here and share Atelier with everybody. So, before we start, let's make sure everyone is on the same version as we are.
2.4.57.
And if you're not on this version, all you need to do is go onto the Atelier website, your little dashboard. It should have the latest version available there. Alrighty, so we're going to be covering all the basic concepts you'll need to construct a garment in Atelier. To better illustrate these concepts before we delve into the program itself, we're going to briefly show you a clip that explains how you put a 3D garment together in CLO. So let me get that video going. And here. So as you can see, you have your patterns that you arrange. Then you start sewing them together really quickly. You simulate. Then you can interact with the garment like so. Then you can start fabricating it and seeing how the garment drapes differently depending on what fabrics you use. Up the resolution. And then finally, you can render if you so desire.
Right. As you can see, there are a few steps that are involved in creating a 3D garment. And we've broken down the process into a core 8 concepts that we will cover extensively. These core 8 concepts are layout,
navigation,
selection,
simulation,
arrangement and avatar,
sewing,
materials,
and particle distance.
And by the end of this webinar, you will be able to create a t-shirt without any trouble.
So you're welcome to follow along as we go with the materials provided in the download link in the newsletter. If you'd like to review anything we covered today, the entirety of this webinar will be posted to the Atelier website in the training section after the webinar has concluded. And as we're sure you're going to have questions, we'll be more than happy to answer them during the Q&A period at the end of our session. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So let me just pop open the program really quickly.
All right, so feel free to sit back and relax for this bit. So imagine you're a sponge soaking in all the information we're about to share. As you can see in the screen in front of you, our program has 6 windows. And starting from left to right, we have the library, the 3D garment window, the 2D pattern window, the object browser, the property editor, and the history window. So first off, on the library, this is where you're going to quickly access your files. Now we have a couple default folders here, but you can add your own. And then when you click a folder, notice that the name is highlighted in gray and the thumbnails load. So next up, we have the 3D garment window. And we're just going to load an avatar and a garment real quickly here. And this is where you can do things like arrange, drape, and visualize your 3D garment. So up on the left side, we have the vertical toggle menu. And this is where you can toggle what exactly is visible in the 3D window and how it looks. And then also in the 3D toolbar above, you can see there are a whole bunch of tools that are grouped by function. And here too, if a tool is selected, it is highlighted in dark gray. So next, we have the 2D pattern window to the right. And this is where you will create, sew, edit, everything to do with 2D patterns. And the 2D toolbar above is similar to the 3D toolbar. Everything's grouped by function. And if something is selected, it is highlighted in dark gray. So next, we have the object browser. And this lists all of the objects present in the program, so in your whole file. And it uses tabs like you see at the top, say fabric, buttons, buttonholes, top stitching. There's a tab for everything. And if you select a tab and then select an item, it is, as usual, highlighted in dark gray. Next up, we have the property editor. And this is where you can edit the properties of anything you have selected. And this can be anything from the avatar itself to patterns, to components of patterns, to pieces you placed on them. And then next up, we have the history window. And this is where you can track and move through your working history. Now, another really important aspect of our software is the right-click menu. And you can right-click on nearly anything and anywhere in the software, and a pop-up menu will appear. Now, these pop-ups are crucial to functionality in our software. If in doubt where to find an action or an option, try right-clicking on it. And all right-click menus are context sensitive, so it will only have options relevant to what you've clicked on. So now that we've introduced the setup of the software, let's add our files to our library so that we can reference them quickly. This way, you're not going to have to go through the frustrating file open and then locate it in your computer every time. So let's press this little plus sign at the top of the library window, and a window should pop up. Now you can then just locate the training folder or wherever you have placed the folders or the folder that you downloaded. And inside that, we want to select the textures folder. Now with that selected, you don't want to double click on it, just select it. You're going to click the select folder button. And that will be added to the library window and the files within it displayed below. So then we want to do the same thing for the Act 1 folder. So we're going to press that little plus again and select Act 1, select folder, and it will be loaded as well. So now within the Act 1 folder, we're going to want to open one of the folders within it. And the one we want is number 2, navigation. So if you just double click that, and then within it, there's a number of files. We're going to drag and drop the 100 box file into the 3D window to load it. And it will look like so. Now, if you're having a hard time seeing any of the file names, you can switch to list view very easily like so. And this will give you a better view of your actual file names.
So again, that's just pressing this icon right here. So you can toggle between list and icon view like so.
So let's clear the screen of distractions. First, we're going to clear away the library window by pressing this little arrow here to minimize it. Or you can also use the Y key, as that is the shortcut for minimizing or maximizing the library window. There we go. And then next up, we're going to get rid of the 2D window for now because we don't need it for the moment. And we can do that just by clicking on the 3D button down at the bottom right. So now we only have the 3D window, and that's what we want. So we have this box in front of us, and we're going to want to place our mouse in the 3D window, and you can then use the scroll wheel to zoom in and out. And you can notice how your mouse icon briefly changes when you zoom to indicate scrolling. So you zoom out so that the box is small. You can then hold the scroll wheel down, so just click and hold that, and you can pan left, right, and up and down, like so. And you'll notice that the cursor becomes a little fist. Next, let's rotate to the top by holding down the right click on the mouse, and your icon will change to 2 arrows circling around. And if you let go, it will change back. So we're going to rotate to the red side. I'm going to try that. And just continue rotating around and see if you can find the hidden paw print. There is a paw print on one of the sides. Oh, it could be anywhere. Wow.
Right there.
All right. So we found it. Finally, we're going to delete the box itself. So just right click on the box. So on the box, and you'll get a menu that appears. Select delete all avatars. There we go. So now that you're familiar with the mouse controls, we're going to do a quick exercise. Let's load the file 101 panning from the library window. So we need the library back. Just open the library again, either by clicking Y or pressing on the little tab here. And then sorry about that. And then we just need to load the file 100 box.
Actually, it's 101 panning, I believe.
Oh, my bad. 100 panning. 101, 101 panning. Goodness me. All right, thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
So we can see 3 cubes in front of us, and we're going to try and find the 4th cube.
All right, so first I'm going to clear my library so I have more working space on my screen by pressing Y. And then, like Jesse said, let's look for that 4th cube. So zoom out, let's try to rotate. Oh, hey, there it is.
Great job.
Thank you.
Now that you found it, try panning so there's only 1 cube on the screen.
Which color would you like?
Pink. Go with pink. Magenta, sorry. Good job. And to wrap up 3D space, we're going to now load the file 102 body. So we need the library window again.
So this time I'm going to press this little tab over here. And I'm going to load 102 body like so. Click and drag and drop.
Alrighty. So whether the avatar you have open is box or body, the view controls are the same. So you can zoom in and out, you can hold down the scroll wheel to pan, and you can use right click to rotate. So if you right click on the background, though, in the 3D window, you'll see a pop-up, and this is the same regardless of the avatar. This has a number of default views that you can access. So the default views are all listed there and their corresponding hotkeys. So say we want to view the top of her head, we just click top, and there we have it. Now say we want to go back to the front view. You just right click again and select front. And there we are. Now this comes very much in handy if you've, say, lost your avatar. So if we just pan her off the screen, like so.
Goodbye.
You can then right click on the background and just hit front or press 2 on your keyboard. And bam, she's back. Alrighty. So now that we can navigate the 3D window, we can move forwards. So access the library once more by pressing Y, and then switch to the folder called 3 Selection.
So I'm going to press these 2 dots up here. Go to 3 Selection. And then load the file. I believe you said 100 grid?
That is correct.
Okay. And I'll clear away my library once more by pressing Y.
So notice when you load this, we're on the Select Move tool, which is this one up at the top left here. That one there.
Yep, this guy right here.
So this one, this is the default icon, or the default in the 3D window. And anytime you want to move or select a pattern, we want to make sure you're on that tool. Otherwise, if you're on other things, it's going to have very different effects, and you're going to randomly add things or move pieces, and you don't really want to do that. So make sure you're on that Select Move tool.
And what's really nice is if you hover over the tool for a while, the little tooltip will pop up, so you can make sure that you are on the correct tool that way as well.
And that will also give you the hotkey if you like that kind of thing. So we want to left click on the top left square pattern. And you'll notice that it turns yellow, and this means it's selected. So ignore the gizmo that just popped up, and this is the whole bunch of curved and straight lines that appear. We're going to cover that a bit later. You can select multiple squares by holding down Shift as you click. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And we're going to select the whole top row. You just hold Shift and click each one, and it's added to the selection. So once we've done this, we can just hit Control or Command and A and select all patterns. It's the normal select all command, like so. And then we can also deselect individual patterns by holding Shift again and clicking them to deselect them. So we want to deselect, say, an X through this square here.
Sure.
You can also remove your entire selection by letting go of the Shift key and then clicking anywhere in open 3D space. And that will deselect everything. So now, say we made a mistake and we want our old selection back. We want that X back. You can undo any of your actions by pressing the normal Control-Z, and this will bring back that selection. And you can continue going back through your actions by pressing Control-Z, and you can see that your old selections reappear as you go. And this applies to pretty much everything you do in CLO. If you do something, it's an action, and you can redo or undo it.
Right. So if I accidentally move my patterns like that, then I can hit Control or Command-Z and bring it back to normal.
There we go. Because we like the grid. We want that.
Yep.
So now we're ready for a new file, and we're going to load the 101 mystery file from the library. And we just want to drag and drop that file into the 3D window. And as soon as that opens,
Are we saving?
we are not. We're not saving.
Okay.
Don't do that. We
So
like
we're
that file.
Not saving at all.
Alrighty. So you'll see that there's a little gray pop-up, and this is the garment info window. Now this gives you a little bit of information about this file, and it includes instructions for the exercise you've just opened. You can X out of this, since we're going to do it together, and then just zoom and pan so that you can see the little yellow paw prints. So they're pretty small at the moment. Just make sure you can see them clearly. All right. So this exercise, just going to click on the paw prints. You want to hold down Shift so you can select all of them at once, because you want to select all of them until everything is yellow for fairly obvious reasons.
And if you make a mistake and move your patterns, once again, just hit Control or Command-Z to bring it back to how it used to be.
That is terrifying. You pulled off Pikachu's face.
They don't know it's that thing yet.
So be careful when you're selecting around Pikachu's left hand. As you can see, it's pretty easy to select the hand piece and not the tiny little piece with the actual paw print on it. So just be careful and zoom in to make sure you're selecting the right thing. And then you can, of course, deselect the hand if you've done so. And we're done. We have Pikachu. Perfect.
Huzzah! So let's do a little switch, and I will narrate for a while.
Alrighty.
Oh, hold on.
Oh, we seem to be having a little buffering going on the stream. Sorry about that. If you're getting an interruption, we apologize.
All right. Yep. It seems like the buffering is gone. So I think everyone is good so far, which is great. So let's spice things up a bit. In our library, let's navigate to the For Simulation folder. So once again, just double click on that folder with the 2 dots, or you can just click on the Act 1 folder like Jesse just did.
And then select the For Simulation folder.
And then A Puzzles. And we're going to load the file that Jesse just highlighted, which is called 100 Rings of Fire. All right, so once again, no need to save. And since we're going to go over the exercise together, just X out of the garment info window. So far, we've been dealing with just static patterns. So let's get to the heart of the software, which is garment simulation. Just watch for now. I promise you'll have plenty of time to play. So, up in the 3D toolbar is an icon of an arrow pointing downwards. This is our simulation button. If you press it, the icon highlights in blue to indicate that simulation is turned on. Now, what does this mean exactly? It means gravity is applied and the garment is ready to be grabbed, pulled at, and styled. You may have noticed that as soon as I turned on simulation, the square pattern crumpled to the ground, just like how if you drop something in midair, gravity would pull it to the floor. Using my mouse, I can left-click and hold on the pattern to pick it up. Notice how the mouse icon changes into a little hand that's pinching at the pattern. I can drag it here and there, and also release my left-click button to let go of the pattern. But I'm only grabbing a portion of the pattern. If I want to move the entire piece, I need to turn off simulation by either pressing the icon again or pressing the spacebar to toggle it on and off. Then I can move the entire pattern around with my mouse. So for this exercise, the goal is to get the pattern through all the circles while simulating, so all the tires. It can be helpful to turn off simulation, adjust the view, move the pattern around a bit, and then restart simulation to continue. Just remember, to pinch at the garment and lead it through the rings, simulation needs to be on. And if you want to move the entire pattern, simulation needs to be off. So I'm going to let Jesse work on this for a bit.
I think I got this. You might be okay. Oh man. Okay. Oh, view it from above. Tricky. Let's see. Is it gonna work? Yes.
If you're having difficulty, just remember, the key to this exercise is constantly changing your view and toggling simulation on and off. Oh, did you get it?
I did.
All right, and when you finished, just turn off simulation.
Success. All right.
All right, now we can go ahead and move down the line in the folder. The next file would be 101 Tablecloth. Yep, just as usual, ignore all the pop-ups.
All right.
So in this file, we're going to learn about adjusting fabric while simulation is on. If you simulate, the tablecloth will fall onto the table. Now, we want the tablecloth to be laid out nice and evenly, so we're going to need to pull on it a bit to adjust it. Remember that you can only pull the pattern up and down or side to side. So view the table from an angle where the tablecloth can be pulled sideways. Pull and hold on the tablecloth to adjust it, stopping once all corners are off the floor.
Oh, I think, come on. I think I got it. I might have overdone it a little bit.
Just keep working at it, you'll get it.
Okay, I got it. Got it. Perfect.
Amazing. Okay, let's go ahead and load the next thing, which is, I believe, 102 RVB.
This one here.
Yes.
Just like that. It's going to look like this. So now for this file, you're going to want to immediately simulate, because the point of this is to put the blue squares in the blue box and the red squares in the red box. But it's sort of cheating if you do it with simulation off. So we're just going to simulate right away.
All right, so yeah, Just change the camera angle to be able to move the red and blue pattern pieces into their respective boxes. And remember that simulation can be toggled off, the camera angle adjusted, and then simulation toggled back on in order to change how the piece can be moved. Great.
Whew.
Hopefully you guys are having similar results here.
You can do things like juggle, maybe.
Someone's having fun.
But someone can juggle, I'm sure. It's not me, but someone could. All right.
Oh, look at that. You got all the red pieces done.
And then, yeah, there's a whole number of ways to do this. You can use pretty much any view angle. Like I'm looking at it over, you know that I'm moving this forward and up at the same time, like so. You do it inside, pick it up, and move it sort of into place this way, and then move it the other way, like so, and then just drop it. Lots of solutions. All right.
Amazing. All right. So since we're finished with that, let's load the 103 scarf file from our library.
And boom.
X'd out. Yep, exactly. All right. So the goal of this puzzle is to wrap the scarf around the avatar's neck. It's harder than it sounds, I promise. So the key to this exercise is stepping, which is turning simulation on and off and constantly changing your view. So watch as I do one side. First, I'll turn on simulation. And now I'm going to adjust my view and press the space bar to turn simulation off.
I'll just pull this up. I can hit the space bar to hold it there.
Yep, there you go.
If I'm holding it and I try to move around, it drops it. So
Jesse's pulling it up.
Pull it up.
Pausing, changing his view, and there you go. So we're using a space bar because then you can catch the fabric as it falls, pull it in the right direction, and then turn off simulation again by pressing space bar. It's a lot easier than trying to catch the fabric, then go to press the icon and then coming back. So just try and get used to hitting space bar to pause, to turn on and off simulation.
Right, so there's no way I'm fast enough to be like, okay, this is gonna be here. Now I'll hit the, oh. Alrighty.
All right, so I'm just
gonna,
like this.
Yep. Oh, and I missed it.
But yeah, if you are having trouble catching it, don't be afraid to put your mouse a little bit lower than where the actual pattern is. Yep, to give yourself a little more time to catch the pattern before it falls.
Because yeah, I'm hitting the space bar and then clicking one right after the other. So space, click, go fast.
It takes some practice, but you'll definitely get it.
Alrighty.
And if you're finding that the actual entire scarf is moving when you turn on simulation, like Jesse's going to demonstrate here.
So like this?
Yep. Then you might be left clicking on the scarf ahead of time. As we mentioned in the 100 Rings of Fire puzzle, you can grab the entire pattern with simulation off, but you're only able to grab a portion of the pattern while simulation is on. So if the entire scarf is moving once simulation is on, this is because you're selecting the entire pattern, not a portion. So turn on simulation and then left click to grab. And also, if anything that you don't like is happening, just press Control or Command Z to undo that action and go back to wherever the simulation is, I guess, at the point that you like.
Because every time you turn simulation on or off, that is considered an action, which means I can step back and forth to, say, here, where my scarf is back where I wanted it.
So should we move on, or do you want to finish up?
I think we're pretty good. I could wrap this once more, but that's about it.
All right, that looks pretty good. Okay, so let's go back to our library really quick. All right, and double click on that folder with the 2 dots and move to the B fixes folder. Let's load the only file in there, 100 leg.
And done.
So this time we're going to fix the simulation in the file. So let's go ahead and turn on simulation. So you can do that either by pressing the icon or pressing the spacebar. And once again, this is about rotating to that right view and then pulling at the garment.
And don't be afraid to pull pretty hard, because you notice nothing's really happening when I do this. But once I start to really pull it, there we go. It's a bit more like it. So again, make sure you're pulling close to where it's disappearing inside the leg. So your pants aren't supposed to go through your leg. So
are you sure?
I'm sure. I'm pretty, yes. I'm 100% on that, actually. Say like so. Oh man, what have I done? Okay, there we go.
All right, so let's move on to the next topic then. Here, I'll let you set up real quick.
Alrighty. So I'm just going to add a little pattern here. Here we go. So say like this. And I'm going to get rid of
Cool.
pants. I have the pattern.
All right. So as you guys have just experienced, simulation will make patterns drop immediately from where they're placed. That means if I want this pattern that just fell to the floor to drape on the avatar, I need to place it manually. But like, you don't want to have to lift it up off the floor, pause, and then try and get it exactly on the body, because that would be extremely time consuming and difficult.
Are you yep. Are you sure?
Exactly like that.
This is going so well.
So instead, we can utilize arrangement points. So what are arrangement points? Thank you, Jesse.
Scott's here.
They are these blue dots on the avatar that we can use to place patterns all over the body. All you have to do is select the pattern, and then a point on the location that you want to place it. And you can see, as we move our mouse, the gray ghost of a pattern will appear, showing you that that's how the pattern will look once you click on that specific arrangement point. So it pretty much saves time and effort. And when you finish arranging your patterns, you can then turn off the points and then start sewing or doing whatever you want to do next in the software. So with that, let's go to the folder 5, Arrangement and Avatar. Load the file 100 arrangement box. Don't save, and let's X out past the garment info window. So let's learn how to turn on arrangement points. Take your mouse and hover over the second icon, which is the avatar icon, in the vertical toggle menu. It should expand, and as you hover over the options, a tooltip should appear with the icon names. So click the one that says Show Arrangement Points. Blue point should now appear around the curve, or around the cube, sorry. So let's do this together. Select the reddish orange pattern. Should I say it's like salmon? Something like that.
That seems right-ish.
All right. So with the pattern selected, click on the arrangement point in front of the red side. Notice how it curves nicely around the side. Repeat for the other patterns so that all of them are arranged on the box.
With the white pattern, let's see. Sun at bottom.
Whoa, so fast.
Blue. That's definitely green. Yeah, that's green. Okay.
It was easy, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm already done. Look at that.
So let's move on to 101 arrangement body.
Oh, sure. I'm gonna turn my arrangement points back off.
Fair.
There we go. Okay, just this guy here. No, and reload. Okay.
So just a tip for this exercise, start by moving your patterns out of the way so that you can see the arrangement points clearly. Let's select them all at once by pressing Control or Command A. Yep. And then clicking and dragging them away from the body. So we're going to repeat exactly what we just did for the box, except this time on a body. Again, turn on arrangement points by hovering over the avatar icon in the vertical toggle menu, and then click on the one that says show arrangement points. And your avatar should have all these blue dots around her. Now, click on a pattern and arrange it around the body part that corresponds to the pattern color. So, salmon-y around the red.
That's it. That's there. This is here. That's a little too high. There we go. This is the front. And this. Perfect.
Beautiful.
Maybe, what if I just. Way better. Okay. There.
There, okay. Now that we're familiar with arranging our patterns, let's introduce another tool that we use for arrangement. We mentioned the gizmo tool before. It was the ball of multicolored lines that appear whenever you select a pattern in the 3D window during selection. That one right there. This tool is used to move patterns around in the 3D window when simulation is off. It's used in situations where the arrangement points won't quite work. So let's explore this concept using a skirt. Load the 102 the gizmo file. Okay, so the waistband patterns are already arranged, simulated, and frozen in place. The skirt patterns are a different story. The two skirt patterns are so big that if we arrange them using the arrangement points, then, yep, like so. Then they double back on themselves as they wrap around the avatar, as Jesse just showed us. So the arrangement points can't really help us here. This is a situation that calls for the gizmo, as that tool allows us to reorient items in 3D space. So let's undo our actions back to when everything is flat. And let's click on the front skirt pattern in the 3D window, either of them, and the gizmo will appear where you clicked. The arrows and the curved lines of the gizmo can then be clicked and dragged to reorient the selected pattern. The red, blue, and the green lines will move the pattern along the indicated axis and only that axis. The red, blue, and green circles rotate the pattern around that axis. And finally, the yellow square moves the pattern freely and can be used to grab or right-click on the selected pattern, even if it's not directly visible, like so. A very important point to note is that the axis of the gizmo depends on your viewing angle. So looking at the pattern from a different angle will alter the direction of change for the different portions of the gizmo. So try moving and rotating the front skirt pattern with the gizmo for a bit to grasp how it works. You feeling comfortable with it now?
I'm pretty good, actually, yeah.
Okay, cool. So then let's align the front pattern with the front waistband. Make sure you're in the default front view, so press 2 on your keyboard, and then let's use our gizmo to rotate our pattern. You want to left click.
See, that's, ooh, okay.
Rotate, yep, and then move it side to side.
Oh, and move it nice and close.
And then push it away from you to align it with the waistband.
Oh, wow.
So let's rotate our view to see how we did.
Oh, goodness.
And then,
a little far.
No worries, just make corrections with the gizmo by left clicking on it again. And there you go.
Maybe like that. There we go.
And go ahead and do it for the other side as well. That's looking pretty good.
All right.
And once you finish, click Simulate to complete the skirt. Nice view.
Boom.
Wonderful. All right, I think I'm all talked out right now, so why don't we swap?
Okay.
Let me rest my voice.
So the next section here is about sewing. And this means we need our 2D window back so we can access our actual patterns. So let's bring that window back by pressing on this icon down in the bottom right here. It looks like a book, and it indicates that both windows are being displayed. And now we're back to the 2D window.
Hi.
So now that we have this open again for the first time since we started the software, let's get to know it a little better. Now the view controls are exactly the same as the 3D window. You can left click on a pattern to select it. And of course, they're highlighted in yellow to indicate they've been selected. So just like the 3D window. You can zoom in and out with the scroll, and the mouse icon changes to the scroll icon. Panning is the same as well. You can pan around. And of course, well, we're gonna try panning a little bit more because that's, you need to do that a lot. So we're gonna put, just so 2 of them are on the screen, something like that. Alrighty. So if we then, you can right click on the 2D background or patterns or anything you feel like, and you'll get the right click menu. The only thing you obviously can't do is, since this is 2D, you cannot rotate. It's just not gonna happen.
Makes sense.
So another thing similar is the setup. We have the avatar in the middle, but it's a silhouette, as you can see. And then we have our 2D toolbar along the top with tools grouped together based on function. So we're going to take a look at the sewing tools, and they're this first grouping of tools in the second row. Now the leftmost tool has an icon of a sewing machine with a cursor in the upper left corner. Now this is the Edit Sewing tool. If you take a look at the other tool groupings, you can see that in most groupings, the leftmost icon contains a tiny cursor. And this indicates that that is the edit tool of any grouping. So say this one here is the edit top stitching tool. This one is the edit pattern tool. And then next to the edit sewing tool that we were looking at originally, we have the other sewing tools. The one to the right is the segment sewing tool. And then next to that's the free sewing tool. And those will be the ones we're focusing on in this section. So now that we've accomplished arranging patterns, we need to learn to sew. So they come together instead of like some of the other ones that fell to the ground when you simulate. So when you create seams on a sewing machine, you put your pattern edges together and then sew. Now in CLO, sewing is pretty much the same idea, but a bit simpler. Essentially, all you're doing is pairing things. You're telling the software where those 2 pieces need to be attached and in what way. So shall we try it out? We're going to go to the folder number 6, sewing. So just go up a level and then 6, sewing. And then pick the A puzzles folder and open the 100 intro to segment sewing file. So once that loads, just X out of the garment window and then select the segment sewing tool from the 2D toolbar. It is this one here.
This one?
Yes, that is correct.
Got it.
So we're going to attach the 3 squares to the rectangle that's frozen above. And using your mouse, just left click on one pattern edge, say the top of this piece here. And that establishes the first half of the seam. You can then use the little highlight that follows your mouse around to your advantage, because it gives you a preview of where the seam will appear if you click in that spot. And then mouse over the other half of the seam. And once again, pay attention to that blue highlight. So just left click to finish sewing on the upper piece, like so. And once you left click, the blue highlights disappear and you'll be greeted with a dashed line, like so, that shows what is connected to where. Then this means that your seam has been created. So if we look over at the 3D window, you'll see sewing lines have appeared here as well, connecting the 2 patterns. And the colors of the thread are completely random, so you don't have to pay attention to that. If yours are a different color, that is perfectly fine. The one thing you want to pay attention to is the sewing notches. See these little lines here? So those are very important. These are the notches that indicate sewing direction. In this seam, they are pointed both to the left, and you can see that they're on the same side so that nothing is twisted. I'm going to sew the next pattern, but this time with the notches facing in different directions. So go ahead and twist the second seam on purpose, one notch facing one way and one the other way. Right away, you can see that the dashed lines are going to be twisted, and sure enough, in the 3D window, the seam looks crossed. So now if we simulate, you can see that the first square sews correctly, while the second one now has the wrong side, the dark side, facing us. Sometimes, such in the case of pleats, you'll want to have twisted seam lines, but so just note that twisted seams are not necessarily a bad thing, but this case, that's not really what we want. And you'll also notice that the third square we didn't sew at all, so it is on the floor. So before we fix the second square, we're going to turn the simulation back off and sew up the third one. And we can just do that easily. Click, click. And with that done, just simulate again. Now you can see how it jumps up from the floor and sort of freaks out a bit and ends up draped over that top piece. This is why we went over arranging earlier, because you want to place patterns that are sewn together close to one another so that they don't do things like this, so that they're not jumping large distances. So if we just turn off simulation again and just press Ctrl-Z to undo our last action, then move that piece that's on the ground a bit closer to where it's going. We can then simulate again, and much better, a lot smoother.
Yeah. Much, much better.
So now we want to edit the twisted sewing on that middle piece. We're going to use the Edit Sewing tool from the 2D toolbar. So it's that leftmost one here. And we just want to select that sewing line, either of the two sewing lines. And you'll notice that they are slightly bolded to indicate they're selected. And then we have two options. One is we can just hit the delete key now, and it'll delete that whole pair of sewing lines, and then we can just go and re-sew with the segment sewing tool. But that takes a lot of steps, so we're probably not really going to want to do that. We just undo back. The easier way is to, again, with the Edit Sewing tool, just right-click on the sewing lines and select the option Reverse Sewing. And this will swap the direction of one of the sewing lines, and perfect. Now they're both facing the same way. So if we just simulate again, boom, that piece is back.
That looks great.
Good job. So now we know how to use segment sewing, and we've done a bit of practice with the Edit Sewing tool. So we're going to move on and practice a little bit. We're going to open the file 101 Montreal.
This looks oddly familiar.
As usual, we're going to X out of the garment info window. And before we can continue, we're going to point out a tool that will come in handy. If you take a look in the 2D toolbar, you should see a black mouse cursor icon with a filled-in triangle. And that's that one there. That is the Transform Pattern tool. And this is used to select entire pattern pieces. So to make sure you're not moving parts of it around. And you can use this to move around your patterns in the 2D window. So you can just place them close to where they're going to need to sew to, so you can keep track of what exactly is going on. Should make it a little easier to understand what needs to be sewn to where.
Yep.
So once they're close to each other, we're going to start sewing.
I think I'm going to use segment sewing since we just learned about it, right?
Oh yeah, definitely do that. And these are all just pieces that are all the same lengths and whatnot, so nothing to worry about. Doing great. Just going around and pairing segments together.
This is oddly very peaceful.
And once you've done so, don't forget to move pieces in 3D window as well. So you want those to be pretty close to where they're going, like so. And then once you're done, you can just simulate. Oh
Good.
goodness, what happened?
I'm not really sure.
Okay, so there's obviously a couple things wrong. So if you find sewing errors, don't worry. You can just switch to the Edit Sewing tool and then go around and check your various sewing lines, reverse things that need to be reversed, delete and resew lines that need to be removed entirely.
Oh, I found it.
Oh, so
That's the
say that one sewn to the wrong spot, as you can tell. So we just resew that.
And
Maybe. Oh yeah, nice.
yay! I
Well
got it.
So now that we've done that, we can move on to free sewing. So the point of free sewing is if you want to sew across multiple points or only say one smaller section of a pattern, because we were sewing the whole sides of each of these squares. So if we want to sew just a smaller bit, we need the free sewing tool. And we're going to learn about this tool by opening up the 150 Intro to Free Sewing file. Now just get out of the garment info window as usual. And the free sewing tool is located here, right next to the segment sewing tool. And it works a little bit differently than the segment sewing tool. You're going to click once on the top left of the smaller pattern here, and that designates a start point. And then if you just move your mouse along, keep in mind you don't need to be clicking and dragging. You just click once and then move along the edge. Once you move along, you'll see a preview of your line, and you can just click on that rightmost point. And you'll notice that went right over those points that are in the middle of the segment there. Now that sets the first of the two sewing lines. So to place the second one, we just do the same thing, start on the left edge because we want them to be going in the same direction. And once you start mousing along that edge, you'll notice that there is a small blue dot that appears. And this indicates the point at which the two sewing lines are exactly the same length. This ends up being very useful. In this case, it's right on top of an existing point, but in other cases it won't be. And it will allow you to set things perfectly equal, even without preset points.
So I just left-clicked again to end that sewing line, and now we have a seam.
Okay, so we're going to set a smaller section of sewing on this middle pattern. We're just going to sew a smaller bit, and you can sew in either direction, bottom to top, top to bottom. As long as they're going the same direction, that's fine. Say like so, mouse along, there's the blue dot, and you know they're the same length. There we are. So we're going to practice the free sewing tool just a little bit more by sewing the rightmost rectangle pattern to the long upper pattern. And you can sew really any edge you want, but we're going to do the top edge. So once this is done, we're going to learn about two more types of editing that can be done on sewing lines. So just go back to the Edit Sewing tool, which is the leftmost one here again. You want to edit something, you need the Edit tool. So the Edit Sewing tool, there we go. So entire sewing lines can be shifted around. So we're going to shift the sewing line on the rightmost pattern to a different location entirely. So if we just click and drag on the middle of the sewing line, you can then just slide it around the edge of that pattern. And the blue preview will tell you where it's going to go. Once you have it shifted to a different location, just simulate to see how that affects simulation. Oh goodness, that looks great. That looks real weird. Okay, so just
judge my work.
Turn simulation back off. And then the start and end points of any sewing line can also be selected and moved. Now this allows us to resize sewing lines as needed. And we're going to lengthen the sewing lines on the middle pattern. So if you can click and drag on either of the endpoints on the sewing line attached to the middle pattern, you just move those away from the middle towards the edge so they cover the whole top. And then we can start moving, say, the left point on the upper pattern. So if we just pull that all the way over to the blue dot, they are now the same length. But now we have two overlapping sets of sewing, like so. So if you click those, you'll get a little pop-up, looks like this, and it gives you two options. Each option there represents one of the two sewing lines that are overlapping. So we want the orange one, because we want to move that upper line so that it's not in the way anymore. And then you can just do the normal like you learned previously, click the middle of the line, slide the whole thing over. There we go. So once you've shifted it over, simulate again, and boom, we're back. That right piece is a little wonky still, but that's okay. So now we're ready to apply this to an exercise. We just load the 151 blue dot file. Now, according to the instructions here, we're going to use the free sewing tool to sew the red patterns to the frozen white pattern. Now, if I look at the white sleeve cap pattern, there aren't any points along the curve to indicate how each red piece fits in. Now, this is where that blue dot we mentioned earlier comes in handy. So select the free sewing tool.
Already did.
And then left click to start on one end of, say, this red pattern here. And then you can left click to end it at the other edge. Then if we left click on the edge of the sleeve cap and start moving our mouse up the curve, the blue dot appears and we can click on that point to end our seam.
Pretty handy.
And you can just keep doing this around the circle here. So on each of the red patterns, click on the red pattern, start sewing on the sleeve cap, and move to the blue dot. And once you've sewn all four, you can just simulate. Beautiful.
Hey! It really looks like something, huh?
Does it? It does, you're right. It looks like something.
Modern art.
Alrighty. So you can see that free sewing gives you a lot of freedom. So bad. You can start and stop sewing at any part of pattern, regardless of segment points. And by combining free, segment, and the edit sewing tools, you can put any garment together.
Woo.
So let's go up a level with the number 6 sewing section. I'm just gonna click on those 2 dots, and then we're gonna load the B fixes folder. And then within that, load the 100 edit sewing length via point file.
Don't you mean edit sewing position?
You are correct. Edit sewing position. I'm bad at this.
It's okay. It's been a long day.
For the next 2 exercises, we're going to combine our knowledge of our sewing tools to fix these files. As per the instructions in the garment info window, we're going to use the edit sewing tool to make the ruffle on the left match the ruffle on the right. So go ahead and select the edit sewing tool. And as soon as we selected that tool, our sewing lines become visible in the 2D window. We can see that the sewing line on the left square pattern needs to be moved to the top to match that of the right. So just grab the middle of that sewing line and move it around the pattern. So now we can see that that seam also needs to be reversed. So we just right click on it and select reverse sewing from the pop-up. Finally, before we simulate, we want to make sure that that pattern in the 3D window is close to where it needs to go. So just grab that and move it close and then simulate. Nice, good job.
Thank you.
So next, open up the 101 wrong side. Like so. And this time, we're supposed to make the bottom patterns match the top. So select the edit sewing tool so we can analyze our seams. Now, right away, we can see that there are 2 seams that just need to be moved. So let's go ahead and do that. It looks like there's an incorrectly sewn seam between the first and second patterns.
Ooh, hold on.
Once we get there.
Okay.
So see.
Now I'm ready. What?
So see that seam?
This one.
Between the 2? Yes. That one's just not going to work out. We can't move that anywhere we want it. So we're just going to get rid of it completely.
All right. So I just right clicked on it and I hit delete from the pop-up menu.
Or you can just hit the delete key, either way. And now we can switch to either the segment sewing or free sewing tool and establish a brand new seam.
I'm just going to keep things quick. So I'm going to go for segment sewing, and judging by that, it looks like I sew this bit to this bit.
All right. So just remember to mind your notch directions. And then when you're ready to simulate, don't forget to move the patterns around so that they're close to their sewing lines.
Hey, Jesse, I have a question.
Yes.
Why do these guys look twisted? even though the sewing looks clear here.
Well, see, that's actually fine because they are currently facing the wrong direction. So how they're arranged in 3D space makes it look crossed, but it's actually not. So once you simulate, they'll flip around like so. They'll freak out a little bit, but you can just pull on them to fix them. There we go.
And you can be a little aggressive with the pulling, right?
That is perfectly fine.
Oh, once again, it's changing my view around. And hey, they look good.
All right. So we're going to wrap up sewing by reviewing some of the basics we started with again to make sure we really have them down. And we're going to do that by switching to the C Review folder. So go up a level, C Review, and then load the 100 Arrange and Sew file. It looks like we're going to have to put this skirt together. So first, turn on your arrangement points. And we're going to do that by hovering over the second icon in the 3D window, and then turning on Show Arrangement Points. Now click on the waistband pattern and then your arrangement point at waist. Alrighty, so that's done. Now, judging by the patterns, it looks like the segment sewing tool is going to be the quickest in this scenario since everything matches up perfectly. And we're just going to go ahead and select that from the 2D toolbar and start sewing. It's lots of clicking. Very easy, very fast. Yeah, just right to left, left to right. You can do this whatever order you want. And don't forget to close up the waistband as well. That does need to be sewn to itself. Alrighty, so once you finish sewing, go ahead and simulate.
I'm going to turn off my arrangement points really quick.
Prop smart.
And simulate.
Nice. So that should look something like this. I realize we're going quite fast, so if you're not quite keeping up, that is okay.
You can always rewind the video once it's posted and just keep chugging along.
Alrighty. So now we're going to move on to materials. So we know how to arrange, sew, and simulate patterns in CLO. And the next step towards a realistic garment is changing the fabric. Now this encompasses the color, texture, and physical properties of fabrics applied to patterns. There are two parts to every fabric in CLO. The color and texture images, which alter how it looks, and then the physical properties, which control how it drapes when simulated. So first, we're going to look at an example of color and texture. Open up the library window, select the number 7 materials folder, and then the A puzzles folder within it, and open the 100 texture chew file.
So go up a few levels, go to 7 materials, puzzles, you said, and then texture chew, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
My best friend Pikachu is back.
Always.
Alrighty. So notice how this version of Pikachu has both colors and textures applied to it. Looks a little weird, honestly.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So we're going to change the color and apply textures to this. And we're going to go over this together. So let's click on Fabric 7 in the object browser. You might have to scroll down a little bit, but it is there. And we're going to find out what a fabric comprises in CLO. So now under material, we have a texture image.
And if you're not seeing one, like how I'm not seeing one here, you can just press this little arrow to expand the material menu.
All right, so now you can see there's a texture section, and that's that floral swirly print. And then below that, we have a color section, this red color chip here. Now these two components work together to alter how fabric looks. If we look at Pikachu, the red on this fabric isn't the most flattering, so we're gonna go ahead and change the color by clicking on the color chip. Our color selection menu will pop up, and we're gonna change the color to match the rest of the body. So we can just choose a semi-random yellow, or we could use the little eyedropper and just pick that right from the source.
The body fabric.
Say like so. So now that's yellow, but it still has a weird texture on it. So we want to get rid of that. And we could just go over and press a little trash can in the property editor, and that will remove the texture entirely. But then we have no texture on it, and that's not quite what we want. Then we'd have to go through and load a file by clicking the little window, and that's going to take a bit of time. The easier way is we want everything to be that body fabric anyway, so we can just go up to the body fabric in the object browser and just drag and drop that onto patterns as we like.
Hey.
Uh-oh. Oh, goodness. We'll just undo. Okay. Whew. That's, wow.
I didn't even notice that happening. That's why you need two people.
Okay. So once that's done, we can move on to the next file. We can load the 101 color file. And we're going to practice just working on colors. So we're just going to match the fabric colors to the color of each side of the cube by changing the fabric color in the property editor. Now, to figure out which piece is which fabric, because each piece has a different fabric applied to it, you can do this one of two ways. You can either click on a pattern in the 2D or 3D windows, and then the fabric that is applied to it will be highlighted in blue, like so. Ignore the check mark for now. It's the blue highlight you want to focus on. And that indicates that that fabric is on that piece. Or you can click the fabric first, like so, and then check which pieces are highlighted in magenta. Alrighty. So we can just go through and say, this piece, we want it to be, it has that fabric on it. We want it to be the same color as a cube. And the easy way to do this is just use the eyedropper. You'll notice there is a little bit of shading to the cube because it is lit in 3D space. So you'll get slightly different colors depending on which angle you're viewing it from and that kind of thing. But this isn't intended to be perfect. We're just trying to get the roughly correct color.
Oops.
What?
Pressing the wrong icons. It's okay. Nobody has time for perfection right now.
Better change that from white to a different white.
Let's see. Oh, there that fabric is. Huzzah! It's done.
Cool. So that's color. And we also want to add texture to each of these. Now, the little prompt at the beginning said to add at least some kind of texture to each pattern. And that is done by adding textures to the fabrics. So we can just go over and click on one of the fabrics. We could do it by clicking on the little 4 square icon next to texture, but we don't really want to do that. That's the hard way.
You mean this icon right here?
Yes, that one. Now the easier way would be to go to the library window, go to that textures folder that we loaded previously.
Which I loaded.
And then you can just drag and drop any of those texture files. And these are just JPEGs or PNGs. You just that repeats nicely. You can drag and drop that onto a piece in the 2D or 3D windows. Or,
ooh,
pretty, right? Wow. Or you can drag and drop any of those files directly onto the fabric in the object browser.
Like that?
Like so.
Ooh.
So just put some kind of texture on every piece. You can do that any of the ways we've described.
Really dark. There we go.
You can totally see that texture.
Hey, you can. You zoom in.
And as you can see, color and texture are additive. So say when we added a green texture to that white piece, it is now green. But that's okay. So that concludes this puzzle. So say you wanted to see how these draped though, because now we have color and texture, but we want to go over physical properties. So that encompasses things like stretch in the warp and weft or things like that that control the drape of the fabric. Now, it's pretty much a technical term for what makes a denim drape stiffly or a chiffon softly. And within CLO Atelier, we provide a default fabric, which was that it's the white one that's always there whenever you load a file. But it's optimal for the initial stages of putting a garment together. But if you want to see what your designs look like in, say, a silk jersey or a melton wool, this is where the Atelier marketplace comes in. So we're going to shift gears ever so slightly and just go grab a fabric. So you can just watch the screen for now. So we're just going to click on the little marketplace button here. It's at the top of the library. And that's going to load up the marketplace in the browser. And then we're not going to go into too much detail as the marketplace is covered in a separate tutorial in the quick start on the training portal on the website. But we're just going to click on the fabric tab and then go grab a fabric. You can just select it, add your bag, and then check out, and then go download it.
It's already in my bag.
Oh,
So
wow.
Let me go back and pick a different fabric.
Look at you, you're so fancy. And
I'll just check out and
cool.
purchase and download my items.
And once you've downloaded it,
And let's go back to our software.
so now we're going to actually switch to a different file to play with fabric properties. We're going to go back into Act 1, and then back to Materials, and then into,
Puzzles again.
that's correct, and then open the 150 Physical Properties file. And this will just illustrate what exactly is changing when you mess with physical properties.
All right. So we already have a fabrics folder that we pre-added to our library earlier. So I'm just going to open that folder up.
And then, so now that we have that, we can just drag and drop our fabrics onto our puffy shapes. So you just select all of them, so it's being applied to all of them. If you're going to drag and drop it from the library into the 2D or 3D windows, like so, and everything changes. And if you simulate, you can see how the drape and etc. the actual physical properties of these shapes changed as they puff up a bit more. This is a stiffer fabric than they were originally. Select everything again and switch fabrics. And this is a softer fabric, so everything deflates again. You just keep changing those through like so. Now, if we wanted to change up the colors and add textures, you can just do that the same way we learned previously. Just go in, select the fabric, and then make changes in the property editor. Pretty. Actually looks pretty cool. Lace as well. Oh, wow. So we should put all of this together. So go up a level.
Or more like go to Act 1.
Oh, okay. Sorry about
Materials. Then C, Review.
And then load the only file that's in there, 100 skirt. Now follow the directions as outlined in the garment info window. We will be posting a solution to this exercise to the training section of the CLO Atelier website after the webinar. So you can just do this one yourself, and then we'll give you a solution to make sure you've done it correctly. But we don't want to take too much time right now, so we're going to move on to the next section. And if you have any questions about this, or just any questions in general, you can, of course, email us at support@clo3d.com.
Okay, so our last topic today is particle distance, which is, Jesse, if you could click on a pattern for me. Oh, great. Which is this value here in the property editor that you see every time you select a pattern. Particle distance is, I'd say it's similar to the resolution of a garment. You can change this value to alter how realistically every pattern simulates. So let's break this down. I'm going to switch over to Mesh View by hovering over the third icon in our View toggle menu and selecting Mesh View. As you can see, each pattern piece is actually made up of mesh, or a bunch of interconnected triangles. Particle distance dictates the length of the sides of each triangle. Thus, the smaller the particle distance, the smaller the triangles, and the more triangles per piece. So compare the skirt pattern to the waistband pattern. The skirt has a particle distance of 20, while the waistband has a particle distance of 10. See how the triangles on the waistband are a lot smaller and that there are a lot more of them within one pattern piece? That is what a difference in particle distance looks like in mesh view. So let's practice changing the particle distance. Let's go to our 8 particle distance folder.
So I'm just going to back up a couple levels and go to 8 particle distance.
And let's load the file, or the folder, A puzzles, and then the file 100 puff. Or is it 100 puff grid?
Puff grid.
Cool. So the instructions tell us to change the particle distance of the patterns to the values indicated on the pattern. So let's go ahead and do that. So select your pattern. And I guess in the interest of time, we should select multiple. So let's hold down Shift and go ahead and select the 100 ones, I guess.
Can do. And I'm actually I'm gonna switch to the transform pattern tool to make sure I'm not changing anything by accident. So I can just hold Shift and I can click through these.
Wow, so fast.
I'm gonna just swap those to 100. Boom. I'll just go down through all the 45s. It's all of them.
Whoa, slow down there. Too fast. I can't follow.
I got the 15s. I think that's all the 15s. Swap those. And then also the 5s. Oh.
Cool. Right away, you can see that the patterns with smaller particle distance values have a lot more triangles packed within the same space. Let's switch to textured surface the same way we switched to mesh view and then simulate. So once again, it's that view toggle menu, the third one, and then, yep, that's textured surface. So then let's simulate. Do you see how lower the particle distance value, the more realistic and soft the fabric looks? Now, you may be wondering, why don't we stay on a small particle distance all the time? After all, we want the most realistic output, right? Great question. We do this because large numbers of triangles take longer to calculate and thus are slower and more intensive to simulate. So this is why patterns in CLO have a default particle distance of 20. At this size, patterns drape both quickly and semi-realistically. So technical jargon aside, you might be wondering what this means in the context of garments. So we'll show you. Let's open up the file 101 dress. As usual, don't save, X out of the garment info window.
And this is a rather large file, so it'll take a little longer to load. All right.
Are we good?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at the dress on the right. The top ruffle looks really, really realistic, and the wrinkles are soft. So this must have a lower particle distance. And the lower you go on this dress, the patterns become more and more faceted, so we can safely assume that the particle distance values are increasing as we go down. So for this exercise, change the particle distances of the ruffles on the left dress to match those of the right.
All right.
So I'm going to let Josie go ahead and do this for a bit.
Okay. So you just say, the top level is 5. So I click on these. So this one's 5. And then switch to transform again. My life easier. This is 15, and 40, and 100. So I'm going to do this level 15, this level 40, and then the bottom level 100. All right. Then I can just simulate.
Ah, looks like you did it right.
Okay. So that top one will just slowly work its way down.
Ever so slowly. But you can see that because the top one is a particle distance of 5, the amount of time it takes to come down is a lot slower. It takes a lot more time than the particle distance of, let's say, the lower ruffle at 100. It was 100, right?
It is. That's correct.
Okay. Yep. So to sum things up, we work at a particle distance of 20 to keep simulation fast. Then, when the garment has been constructed, we drop the particle distance value down to 5 to make the drape more realistic. An understanding of particle distance is crucial for balancing speed and realism when creating garments in CLO, as mesh underpins pretty much a lot of how CLO functions. An understanding of what this is, how it works, and what the different values mean will help you through constructing more complicated garments in the future. So, we've pretty much gone through the core 8 things you'll experience every time you open the software. Again, they're layout,
navigation,
selection,
simulation,
arrangement and avatar,
sewing,
materials,
and particle distance.
Someone really likes particle distance. So let's put it all together to create a bag. If you go back to the Act 1 folder, there is a folder at the way bottom called Act 1 Compilation. And within it, there's another file called 100 bag. So yeah, let's go ahead and open that. All right, and don't worry about the orange color of our patterns. This is just a function called strengthen, which adds a stiffness to our patterns and keeps them from crumpling to the ground as they would with our default fabric. We'll cover this function in future webinars, so like I said, don't worry about it. It doesn't change anything about our process either, so let's just continue. To make things easier when we sew, let's start by turning on our arrangement points.
Can do. Right here.
And let's go ahead and arrange our front piece, our back, our sides,
two sides,
and then the last one, the bottom piece.
And this one's the bottom.
And now that we've arranged our patterns, let's turn off the arrangement points so we don't accidentally rearrange our patterns while we work. Just, turn them off the same way you turn them on. Simple.
All right.
Now, sewing the bag is a little bit more complicated than the sewing we've done previously. Since we have arranged the bag, the sections which need to be sewn together are aligned in the 3D window. But in the 2D window, it might not necessarily be obvious which edges are which. So it's a great time to utilize a feature we call picking points. These are simply the points that let you visualize where a point in 3D is located in 2D. And it appears pretty much every time you left-click on a pattern in the 3D window, and is shown in both the 2D and the 3D at the same time. So since 2 edges need to be sewn together, we want to place picking points on both edges at once. So to place the second point while maintaining the first, we simply need to hold Shift and click again. We can then use these picking points to figure out which edges need to be sewn together. Handy, right? And now, since we know which edges are going to be sewn together, we can sew them. And since our patterns are made up of unbroken segments, let's keep it easy and exactly what you just reached for, Chelsea. Use the segment sewing tool. So we're going to click on one edge and then the other, and then check 3D window briefly to make sure the sewing isn't crossed.
Looks right.
All right, then rinse and repeat for the other sides.
All right, so I just click, hold Shift, place the 2 dots, and I know, okay, these 2 sew together. Make sure the notches go the same direction, check in the 3D, and we're good.
Awesome. Doing great so far.
We can just do the same thing. These 2 are together. Same thing. This one, wait. Oh, it's over there. Okay. I got it. Then the bottom's slightly more complicated. So we can say we know these 2 go together, and that looks right in the 3D window. These are all straight. And then these edges, let's say this one and this one, that's these 2 edges. I just want to make sure the notches go in the same direction. And I'm going to make sure of that by, say, on this very long edge, selecting it one very extreme edge and making sure the notches are towards that edge. or like towards that point. So say notch is on this side. Now the notch is on this side on this pattern, and it looks crossed, but it's actually not in the 3D window. It's just the difference between 3D orientation and the 2D orientation. And then I can do the same thing for this last pattern. Use so like so, and we're all good.
Yep, so once you've sewn everything together and made sure the seams aren't crossed anywhere, you can simulate and the bag should come together.
Oh goodness.
Hey.
What's
and
happening?
Since you guys are following along so well, we're going to share an advanced tip with you here. Currently, the bag doesn't have much shape.
That is correct, yes.
So you can change that by going into the Edit Sewing tool. Oh, and let's turn off simulation.
Oh yeah, that's important.
So yep, the Edit Sewing tool. And then we're going to select all the sewing lines by pressing Control or Command A.
All right.
Then in the Property Editor, there's a section called Fold Angle. Change the value to 0.
Okay, I'll just put 0 here.
And then simulate.
Ooh.
Yep, now the bag looks crisp and has a nicer silhouette. We'll go into fold angles a lot more in the future, but for now, just imagine it as if you were creasing the edges with your fingers. Next, let's change our particle distance of our patterns to 5 and simulate again. So remember to switch to the Transform Pattern tool to select our patterns.
Yes.
Not our sewing lines. And then let's change the particle distance to 5. And let's simulate again.
A little bit of change. All right.
Okay, so from here, let's go ahead and add a texture to our fabric. But since we have strengthen applied to our patterns, it's a little bit hard to see. So let's go ahead and remove strengthen from our patterns since we're not going to simulate after this. So once again, select all your patterns by pressing Control or Command A, and then right-click on the patterns in the 3D window. In the pop-up, you should see an option that says Unstrengthen. Once you select that, the pattern should go back to their regular color. And now we'll be able to see our textures when we apply them. So let's go ahead, open that folder in our library that says Textures.
Okay.
And let's drag and drop one in. I believe we have a leather available.
Yeah, this one here. If I just drop this here.
Awesome.
A little thing to notice, I didn't just change this piece. They all have the same fabric, so it changed everything.
And let's spruce it up just a little bit by changing the color.
Ooh, yeah. What do we think?
I don't know.
Pale blue.
Ooh, that's kind of nice. I like that. Clo blue. All right, and we're done. So let's give it a quick 360 to admire what we've created. And we should probably save our work. So all the way at the top, let's go to File, Save As.
Oh, there we go.
And take a look at the top 2 save options, Garment and Project Files. So saving your file as a garment file saves only the information related to the patterns themselves, whereas saving your file as a project saves additional information, including the avatar, environment, and other related information. So since this specific file has a bag avatar, which isn't an avatar that's normally provided with CLO Atelier, we're going to save this as a project file. So once again, File.
Every time.
Save As, and Project. Just note, if you save something as a project file, it is quite big. Lovely name.
Thank you.
Molto bene. All right, so we made it all the way to creating a bag, so we think you're ready to put together a t-shirt all on your own. It's a bit of homework after the webinar is over. So if you navigate to the folder for Act 1 review.
Just go up here, back to Act 1, and then review.
It's the last folder, yep. And then open up 100 t-shirt.
All right.
Great. So go ahead and construct it and fabricate it without us. But if you get lost, just follow the directions in the garment info window and you should be fine. And you can navigate to it by going to File, Garment Info, and then hitting garment description page, that little button right there. And then you should see the directions if you don't remember what you're supposed to do. And we will be posting a solution for this t-shirt exercise to the training section of the CLO Atelier website after the conclusion of the webinar. So keep an eye out for it. And if you feel lost or want to ask questions about it, email us once again at support@clo3d.com.
So we made some good progress, and we're going to break for some Q&A.
Okay, so let's load this and see if people have questions.
Oh man, I see so many questions.
Oh man, there's also some lag.
Uh-oh, there is quite a bit of lag, so we'll give it a second to catch up. Come on, YouTube, you can do this.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Because we're still a little ways back. Alrighty. I mean, hopefully people have been taking exhaustive notes and just have oodles of questions. I mean, just wow, so many.
Unless we've explained everything really well and
think
there just are no questions anymore.
I'm pretty sure that's what's happening. We're that amazing.
I mean, that could be possible.
Everything was perfect. I thought it was perfect. I don't have any questions. I think that's pretty much how it goes.
Well then, I have a question for you. What are we covering in our next webinar?
What are we covering in our next webinar? Oh my goodness. Wow. Oh, I should know this. Wow.
I mean, I know we haven't officially decided, but we're definitely going to go into more detail, right?
Yes, we are. We're going to be going into some more advanced topics. So now we've stopped on a fairly basic t-shirt at the moment, but we're going to delve into quite a bit more of the actual 2D side, editing patterns, and wholesale creation of garments and that kind of thing. And then a bit more advanced topics along the lines of simulation, adding things like buttons and more intense arrangement, layering, all that kind of stuff, top stitching, etc. So that's some of the things we'll be covering in the next one. Great question, Faye.
Thank you. All right, let's see. Let's just give it a little bit more time, and if we don't have any questions, I think we can close out.
Wow. I guess just one last time, if you, after the fact, have questions, remember that, again, you can email us at support@clo3d.com. So if you don't have questions now, but you think of them later, feel free to email us.
Okay then. So thank you all for attending our first in a series of training webinars. We hope we've cleared up a lot of questions and that you're in a good spot to try things on your own.
This webinar is going to be available on the CLO Atelier website, so please feel free to rewatch the session and try the exercises on your own if you haven't already done so.
And keep your eyes peeled for our next webinar where we will pick up where we left off.
Once again, thank you for your interest and catch you next time.
Yep. Goodbye.